Hi guys, Emma again. Welcome back to the spare room. Back on this little engine, and I pulled it apart and we put the crankshaft in the wrong way around and set the eccentric there. I use one of these little squares just to get, we can see, just to get this eccentric in the lowest position. And what I've done, if you can see that, I put a mark on the centre of the piston valve, and in this hole here we should be able to see where the centre is. So that'll give us a centre that way and a centre that way. We need to measure between the centre of this hole and the centre of this eccentric, and that'll give us the exact length. So what I'm going to do is set that up there like that with a little square, and stands a little square there. Set this in the middle. Then there's a dozen different ways to measure the distance there, but probably I'm just going to do it by eye with a set of verniers, and that'll get us plenty close enough and it'll run. So let's see how accurate we can get it, and we'll write it down. This is the part that we're going to make today. There's the eccentric rod. It's got a big hole in the centre that goes on the eccentric here, and it's got a little hole that goes on this pin. It's got a bit of a kick in it so that it fits between there and there. We'll have to measure that too. But that's the next bit. So the measurement I've got is 2540. So it's about 60 thou under, but there's a million things that could contribute to that. One is our position of our cylinder. Most likely it's just the length between the end of the piston rod and the hole. There could be a dozen little things that have changed that. So this is 2600, and I've checked that 3 or 4 times and I've got 2540. If it doesn't work, we'll make another one, but pretty confident that's right. The hole in the centre is 580 thou, and that fits on this eccentric here. And this hole is 94 thou, 332, which fits on that pin. And it's out of 2mm steel. Well, 75 thou it says, so I've got a bit of steel. Next job will be to mark a centre line, and to mark this hole here and this hole here, and draw out the basic shape and cut him to size roughly. I'm going to set this up and bore him in the lathe, and I'll drill this one, and we'll do a bit of filing, and we should end up with a part that looks something like that, ready to put a couple of bends in. We might just check this offset here too while we're at it. So I've got this marked out, and I use the radius gauges to get a nice curve around here. I marked this out with a scribe. I just centre punched it and marked the distance with verniers, and set the dividers the right distance then, and scribed around and there. Use the height gauge to get these nice and parallel. Next job's to set this up. I've drilled both ends, so we're going to set this up in the four-jaw here. Hopefully it'll go round without touching. We might have to chop the end off. And bore him to match. So what I've done is set it up there with just a piece of high-speed steel in behind the piece of plate. Rob Renzetti and Stefan Goswinter have both done really awesome articles on making depth stops for chucks in the last couple of months. Check them out. They're all beautifully surface ground and hardened and tumble finished to within an inch of their life, but I haven't even got a parallel, so setting it up on a bit of high speed steel is probably as good as anything. That's within probably about a thou and a half thou indicator there, and we're ready to bore him. Now probably I'm going to try and keep this machine as original as I can. It's a decision that I've made. And some of you realise I need a new centre. So this is a special Lorch taper. I've made some tapers in the past. And this one's really quite a good one out of tool steel. If we look at there, that locks in, and if we spin this back here, it ejects nicely and all those sort of things it needs to do. I really need one of two things. Enough equipment to make one of these, which means making a blank and then making a taper in the chuck and sitting it in and machining the end to centre. That's probably the best way to do that, and to probably surface grind or cylindrical grind it in the tool post grinder, and that'd make a nice centre. The other thing, of course, which is always an option, is to find someone who has a set of Lorch dead centres or a live centre, and that's proving to be fairly impossible. So at this point, yes, my centre's bad, and when this engine's finished we may take some steps to actually fix that, so we're going to live with it for a bit. So we're about 2 hours later, I think. I've actually pulled the motor off this lathe and found the problem. It was a bit noisy, and fixed it. The bearing had come loose in the housing, I think, and was probably turning, or it had moved back and the shaft was grating. It's an alignment problem. So what I've done is Loctited the bearing back in the housing and put it all back together, and everything seems to be fine again. So fingers crossed we've fixed it. I'm feeling pretty proud of myself right now, but hopefully I've sorted that out. And we're probably running a bit fast there. So there we have a pretty good run and fit. I'm pleased with that. Next job is a crap load of hacksawing and filing. Get this down somewhere near and get it roughed out and cleaned up. And I'm going to do that off camera because it's going to take me a while. And we'll have another look at it. So there we go. That's what I've got. It's the slip eccentric there, which changes direction. And changes the reverse. And the eccentric rod, which is that piece there. That's starting to look pretty good. It needs a bend in it still, from there to there. And I need to sit down and measure exactly how much, I guess. Now the drawing says 455 thou. We sit this nice and straight up and down. I don't think it's quite that much. But it's not far out. I'm going to start with that and adjust it to fit. So I think that's pretty jolly close. I'll mark this where it says on the drawing. Have a look, it's got 2 points here, one each side, and we're going to bend it nicely so that the two parts are pretty much parallel. And see how we go. It still needs a bit of a clean up on one side. It's got vice marks on it and things. Give it a rub on a bit of paper, get it nicely buffed up, mark the two lines on it, and give it a bit of a bend. So after a lot of messing around, I've got those 2 bends in there. I've also discovered that the drawing was pretty well spot on as far as timing goes, so I've modified this, and I'll fess up here. I've silver soldered a piece back on here and re-drilled it afterwards, and if I was making that part again, that's how I would do it for anyone who's doing the job, is to set this up at square and set a pair of dividers between the 2 points and scribe a line on there and drill it afterwards. So that's probably what's going to happen. We've only got a drill in here for a 332 pin at the moment. I'm going to make another one of them. That's the valve gear all together, and I've got it running pretty good, I think. There's a bit of play all the way around. Probably just a fraction stiff still. It wants a good run, a bit more pressure. I did mess around for a little while and try to get it to run, and it won't, because there's too many leaks and too many tight spots. But another couple of hours and another video and we will have it running. I think it's not a bad looking little engine. So we need to make a piece of cladding there, and I've got a piece of tube I've bought, which is inch, to go on there. It's a little bit thick, it's not really treblet tube, it's more a thicker wall tube, and I don't know whether I want to bore it out or not, or whether I want to make a piece to go around there. I have to think about that for a couple of days. It needs a fitting in here that's the oiler. Basically it's a little oil cap with a screw down top, and it needs a fitting in the bottom for the hose, and it needs a bit of silicone or a bit of gasket sealer or gasket glue around the covers and fittings and things, I think, before it's going to run. But apart from that, it's trying very hard to run both ways, so I'm very confident the timing's right. But I'm going to call that a day for now on this video, and say thanks for watching, and be kind to each other, and more soon, guys and girls.